England 3, Bosnia 0. A convincing scoreline in the end for England, but it was a very, very hard watch. Really and truly up until the majority of the substitutions were made in around the 60 to 65 minute mark in the game. Cole Palmer with a goal from the spot. You know, what an excellent season he has had. Trent Alexander-Arnold with a brilliant second, and Captain Harry Kane stepping up and kind of putting the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. But it was a hard watch, and I understand that it wasn't our best 11 that started the game. A number of our first team players came on in the second half. Obviously, Declan Rice and Saka are not there. Maguire isn't there. Cobby still to come in. Bellingham isn't here. There's 5 or 6 players that are not even with the squad or were on the bench tonight. But I have to say, I saw the way we played. It's the lack of... I said the other day that I really enjoyed the Champions League semi-finals and final because there was a little bit more fluidity to the attack. And I understand that. But you still need a system and a baseline. I just find that our system and our baseline is just too weak. That's how I feel. And I don't think much is going to change my mind about that. We just looked a bit flat, a little devoid of ideas. I'm looking at players and thinking, you're meant to be trying to get yourself into the 26-man squad. 7 of you are going to be cut. And I looked at the starting 11 tonight. Pickford's in. I looked at Konza and thought, you're not on the playing as a guarantee. Dunk, I just think looks so average in this England side. I really do. Gallagher will probably be on the plane, but I just thought it was another lukewarm performance from him. Bowen, it got better as individuals came off the bench and Bosnia started to open up, but I thought his decision-making was off in the large part, kept on coming inside and being narrow. We needed him tonight to really try and spread the play, and that's what happened when the likes of Jack Grealish and co came on. We started to spread the play a little bit more. That created the holes in the space. Watkins, I thought he had one chance, but I thought he was pretty anonymous. I thought he really struggled in this game. So I don't really look at anybody that anyone with a question mark over them didn't do themselves many favors, probably other than Eze. I thought Eze really equipped himself well in this game. I thought he looked dangerous. I was a little disappointed to see him come off. I wanted him to be given a little bit longer, maybe with the Canes and the like coming on to see what he could bring. But I felt like the issue was him and Bowen both have to come inside. So they're coming inside and Cole Palmer's on the inside and it was very narrow and there was barely any width to it. And that was a worry for me. It was more of a system issue, I suppose, than the players, but it was a very hard watch until those substitutions were made. And then Bosnia, their legs tired. It became a little bit easier. And I'm not trying to take anything away from England. We certainly deserved the victory, but I am worried, and I have been for a long time now. I am worried about this Euros. I worry about the system. I worry about our structure. I worry about how we're going to cope when teams sit back and make it difficult for us, because tonight, between the manager and the players, for large parts, we didn't really have any idea. And it took a penalty, which probably took the hearts of Bosnia, really for us to open them up. In terms of what the positive angles of tonight, look, I mean, we know who certain guarantee people are on that plane, but I hope Eze gets a spot. Cole Palmer, listen, I think Palmer's got to be pushing to start England's opening game, based on not the penalty per se, even though that was very clinical, just his overall play. The best moment of the first half, the best moment of the game outside of the late goals came from him. I think he needs to be there. And I want to shout out Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. I did think he was better when he went to right back, them starting in midfield. But Trent hasn't had a brilliant relationship with England, as in the team, for a while now. And in terms of not really being picked, being overlooked, maybe a little disrespected, but I was really impressed with him tonight and sort of his range of passing. And England need him. And the fact that he's barely featured for England over the course of the past 5, 6, 7 years is crazy. Yes, he can have some mishaps defensively. We know that, especially in his younger years. But a lot of that has kind of fallen away from his game, and he's a far more consistent player than we've seen before. Man like G, hope you're well, brother. He says that game gives me more questions than answers. Should have just watched Love Island. Well, that's how I feel watching it. I was a little bit. Normally, these 2 or 3 preseason games before an international tournament, it's meant to be a party atmosphere. It was as dead as a dodo. It felt like players were trying to avoid getting injured as opposed to fighting for their position in the team. Maybe that's because they all already know who's going to be in the team. I'm not particularly sure, but it was a flat occasion. I didn't like the system again, but I felt that for a long time under Gareth Southgate now. I mean, it does end the rot. We had no wins in 2024 as a nation, so at least it gives us something to hopefully build from. But the atmosphere was poor. The play was flat. We had to bring some of the big boys on to really kind of help change things up a little bit. And yeah, look, we're going to be a lot better than that. Cole Palmer was crap. What are you on about? No, Charlotte, I think you're right. I wouldn't say Cole Palmer was crap at all. I thought he played well. Again, the system didn't help. The manager picked 3 players that want to occupy the same spaces and come inside and be narrow. That's on the setup for me. That is it for me. Just said I should have watched Love Island. Yeah, I hear you. I think it meant thoughts on Woolton. Yeah, look, I thought it came on and looked really comfortable. I thought him and Branthwaite came on and just looked a little bit more comfortable on the ball. It ticked it over nicely. Nothing spectacular. Nothing, wow, look at that. But really good display from him. I got a feeling that it's going to be between him and Kobbie Mainoo that gets picked. I feel like Kobbie Mainoo will get the nod. And that isn't any disrespect whatsoever to Adam. But Mainoo has obviously played at Man United, which comes with different pressures. We've seen him perform in an FA Cup final. That's an intangible, which I think could be really, really key. Some will say I'm being biased because he's a Man United player, and I respect that opinion that you may have. But I think only one of those 2 youngsters would go. Having said that, I would take them both over Conor Gallagher, who I just don't think is good enough. Yes, he crushes into some tackles and he gets involved and he works hard, but it's just a lack of composure from him. And that lack of composure worries me. It really worries me. Gallagher was good in this game, Terry. So I don't necessarily think he was. I think he worked really hard. He pressed well. He crunched into some tackles. But I'm looking at his quality on the ball. And sometimes simple is best. Sometimes basic is best when it comes to sport. Sometimes for a boxer, just stick behind that jab. 1 jab, 2 jabs, throw a little combo, in and out. Keep it basic, keep it simple. And a lot of the time it yields results. And I feel like with Gallagher, he can do some difficult things really well. But when it comes to the basics, they seem a little bit off. And he also just seems, he's much faster than me. He would beat me in a race. He's probably more flexible than me. But when I watch Adam Wharton, when I watch Kobbie Mainoo, they just are able to glide past, especially Mainoo. His ability to drop the shoulder, beat a man. I don't know how you would quantify it with a statistic. Only that over the course of time, that extra bit of speed, that extra bit of movement is going to slowly but surely make you beat more men, lose the ball less. And, in a game of inches, which a sport like football is, those marginal gains are going to help you in the end. I don't think Conor Gallagher is an awful player or a terrible player. I just don't think he's of this level, but he will go. He absolutely is going. I personally wouldn't do it, but that is just me. Don't get this title. They struggled but dominated 3-0. What did you miss? You must have missed the game. We struggled to beat Bosnia. We didn't struggle to hold the ball. We didn't struggle to be the better side in terms of possession, attempts on goal, etc. But we struggled to break them down and beat them. Dominating a game isn't just about having the better stats in terms of possession. It's the quality of chances that you create. How often will we be opening them up? And we found it very, very difficult. That, for me, for a team of our caliber, our ranking versus Bosnia, with all due respect to Bosnia, we struggled. We struggled, in my opinion. And a couple of late goals when the legs got tired and the game was lost put a little bit of sugar, a sort of bit of icing on top of the, a bit of a cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. But I think it does paper over some really poor moments. Gallagher leaves the team too exposed. Trent has to start in midfield in this tournament. Yeah, look, I thought he looked really good when he went to right back today, Trent, but that may have something to do with Adam Wharton coming on, Kane leading the line, and then Grealish enabled us to have more width. So when I was watching the game tonight, I was just thinking Grealish needs to come on because he likes being wide. And this is where I looked at the game and thought, Rashford. Now, I'm not saying Rashford deserves to be there, so please don't take my words out of context. The context is now coming. Rashford can stay wide. Rashford will stay on the shoulder of a fullback, which helps keep your team wide. These are often intangible things that you don't see unless you understand the game. And we were very compact and very narrow, and I worry about the Grealish may not be going to the tournament. And although I don't necessarily think he's been the greatest player at City, I think not taking Grealish is going to be a problem because you start looking at the wide players coming in and they all like to cut inside, which means there's going to be less wide play, very congested in the middle, and it's a problem. You need that variety of player sometimes. So, yes, and we are exposed with Gallagher. We really are. He's a bit of a headless chicken. And sometimes that running around and crushing around looks great, but it leaves you exposed. It leaves you exposed at times. Mainu is mid. Okay, mate. No one believes that. If Watkins could finish, Trent gets 2 assists. This is true. Trent played well. I was impressed with Trent tonight. Terrible manager for the first 45 minutes were a disgrace. I agree. FFT says, but it's a friendly, so maybe they just played on autopilot. Southgate can say what he wants, but sometimes you were just on autopilot if it's a friendly. But we played similarly in qualifiers. We played similarly in the Nations League. And I want muscle memory. I want muscle memory going into this. When I used to do martial arts, obviously fighting's fighting, but I used to compete in the kata sections as well. And my coach was one of the best in the business. And some of these katas were the slow traditional type. Others were more of a freestyle thing that actually got performed to music. It was called XMA, Extreme Martial Arts. It was a really cool and fun thing to do alongside the fighting. But our coach believed in never just running. Whether you were training or competing at a smaller tournament, everything had to be done to the highest standards. And his view was if you train to the high standards and perform to the high standards all the time, it becomes second nature to switch into that mode when you need to. It's harder to fall into bad habits. So I would be fuming if I was Southgate if the players went on autopilot in this game. You know, I really, really would. Stop the cap. I have no idea what you're talking about. You have to expand on that. Palmer today. Yeah, I was impressed with Palmer. I thought we had a good game. I really, really did. But I mean, Bowen played better than Palmer when he came on. So look, when Bowen came on, he started to improve because suddenly there was more space because England had more width. Cole Palmer would have absolutely exposed Bosnia with that much space. I think Jarrod Bowen's good. I'm still not convinced about how he can perform and produce against low blocks. I feel like he needs room and space. Not convinced. At this level, there is a fundamental difference. How far can this England team go at the Euros? Well, if we play like that, we'll get out the group stages, and after that, it's anybody's guess. We have the players to win it, but I think the manager and the way we set up and the sort of negative approach we have to games will cost us in the end. That's what I think will happen. Playing bad and winning 1-0 is bad, okay, but if you play bad and win 3-0, that's good. Team to do that. Look, do you know what? I understand where you're coming from. I really, really do. The problem that we have is the body of work. We have seen what happens generally against the better sides. We have seen what's happened at the most important moments for England. We fail. And that stems through the performances. So if we perform well, when we talk about Man City, brilliant, 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 brilliant. They have a poor game but still win. That's the sign of a champion. Performing poorly, consistently, first win of 2024, consistently being knocked out or failing at the final hurdle of the tournaments, that's a concern and a worry. You've got to look at the body of work and not just a game in isolation. If we've been brilliant all of 2024, all of the last 12 months, and then we perform like that and still won 3-0, I wouldn't have a problem. It's everything combined that I worry about. 2 CDMs, no good to cover Maggie. Playing Trent in midfield against a top team would be kamikaze. Look, I believe in horses for courses, and I think there are some games where you might start Mainu. There are some games where you can get away with starting Trent in the midfield and having it a little bit more open and expansive, especially against teams that are going to sit back behind us. So I think what I would love to see at this Euros is a bit more rotation early on in the tournament, saving legs. And you don't need to play your best 11 players. You need to play your best team based on the opponents that you're up against. And England, in fairness to Southgate, he's been better at doing that than other managers. England just used to, for my lifetime, we just play our best team every single game. And then you're exhausted by the time you get to the quarterfinals because you played so much football, where other nations rotate and they understand the differences. The attack didn't work. You can see that in the first 45 minutes. Yeah, the attack didn't work because the manager played 3 players that like to all come central and be central, and it was congested. There was no width. That's on the system and the manager who picked the team. Terry, who do you think will England's most important player be for the Euros? Goes against my nature to single out an individual because I don't think there's any one player. But Harry Kane, excuse me for yawning, exhausted, up very early with the kids. Harry Kane, he's the captain. He's probably the most experienced player in the squad. Maybe Kyle Walker's got something to say about that. He's our most important player on and off the pitch. But that doesn't take responsibility away. You know, Declan Rice, hugely important. Saka now is not a kid as far as England are concerned. He needs to be delivering. We look at, Maguire needs to be delivering. Pickford, all of these guys, the pressure is really on them because they're experienced seasoned pros at international level now. I thought Eze impressed. Gallagher also put in a shift and should go. He deserves a shout. Foden was missing from the team as well. I forgot. That's another player that wasn't there today. So, yeah, look, with individual quality, I just totally forgot about Foden. Just left my mind, and that's another individual. Yes, I totally agree. Bellingham as well. There's a number of top talents to come back into this team. There really is. Kane going to finally turn up when it matters. Jude at least is clutch. Certainly is. And this is the one thing about like young Mainu. That's why when we talk about him and Adam Wharton today, the one thing with Mainu is we know we've seen him turn up in big games. We've seen him turn up in an FA Cup final and score the winner. So those little things are really important. When you go through this England squad, how many players have scored in cup finals? How many players have been influential in winning major trophies? That should play a part in the intangible section when it comes to picking players, because that experience is so key. Just knowing what it feels like to be in some of these players haven't even played in finals. So you look at someone like Eze, I thought was very good today. And I mean it's with no disrespect. What's the biggest game he's played in? Against Brighton? Genuinely, like a big the Brighton Palace derby. Like what? And it's not a dig because he's going to get a big move at some point. He's an exceedingly talented man. I'm just using him as an example. Wharton, you can put in the same category. Like Bowen, you look at Bowen. That guy scored the winning goal in a European Cup final. There's an intangible in that. You look at Dunk. What's the biggest game Dunk's ever played in? As an example. So I do think all of these elements should be looked at. Doesn't mean that everybody has to have that experience, but you need it in there because it gets you through difficult moments and times. Or it can do. Terry, do you think Maddison makes the final squad? See, this is the thing with Bellingham and Foden that predominantly play in that position. Eze that can play multiple positions, including that central area. Cole Palmer that can play in that kind of 10 role. I think when I look at the midfielders, Curtis Jones, Adam Wharton, Mainu, Rice, they are all better deeper than him. I don't know if he should go. I think there's better players and more versatile players than James Maddison in this England squad. And you're right, he can be class, Charlotte. He absolutely can be class. But when you think about him playing in a 10 role, you putting him above Bellingham and Foden? Palmer? No. In central midfield, are you picking him ahead of the likes of Mainu? He ain't composed enough in those central, or strong enough in those central areas. Genuinely. But there we go. Look, I want to thank. I know, Matt, you're backstage. I'm actually not doing calls tonight. It was just a quick match reactions. I am sorry, mate. I apologize. I want to thank everybody who has tuned in. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., me and Ben Jacobs go live for the Done Deal show. So make sure you're all back with us then for his insight, updates, and information regarding transfers. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon. Peace.